We're continuing the mimer in Likuti Torah about the argument, the war that Korach declared against Moshe, and exactly what was his platform, what were his complaints against Moshe, and how did he succeed in convincing everybody to agree with him and to close their eyes or forget all the amazing things that Moses did for them, and the promises that Moses was promising them. Go to the Holy Land, to lead them in the desert, etc. So we said before that what did Korach really want? What did Korach want? Korach wanted to say that God is already revealed over here. We're okay the way we are. Things are okay the way they are, and that the essence of God is basically revealed over here, and everyone the way they are is perfect. We can serve God, we can love God, we can do the commandments, but there's no real necessity to do so. You can do what you want. You want to serve God, you serve God. Hashem is revealed here. The essence of God is already here, and that devours all the bad things. So any thoughts you have are going to be good. Because you're the source of good. Everything is good. That's basically what Korach said. The essence, the power, the might, the awesomeness of God is already here. It's already here. And therefore he said that if you have a talit, which a talit is the garment, just a piece of a wool garment, and you have a hole in the middle to put your head in, whatever, or just to wrap yourself in. You don't even have to have a hole. The garment is enough, because the garment that represents this aspect of God, which is above and before and preceding the world, and which is creating the world. With everything is the same. Everything exists. And the fact that you exist, that's good enough. That's godliness. I don't know what he wanted to do with the difference between a Jew and a non-Jew. It doesn't say in this mimer. But basically, he was saying that all these distinctions and things like this is it's God's will. God wants it to be this way. But there's no real purpose to it. Something like it's going to be in the raising of the dead. There's just going to be godliness, pure godliness everywhere. The world will be filled with godliness. And that's it. Everybody is serving God. So it's the same thing now. Everybody's, whatever you do, that's serving God. You don't really need all these laws and details and blessings and drawing God from a higher place to a lower place and etc. So that's what he said. All you need is the garment. You don't have to have the tzitzit. You don't have to have the strings coming down from it. The same was with Aaron's beard. You don't need the beard in order to draw godliness down from a higher place. The higher place is already basically here. That's all. You want to go higher, you can go higher. So the Jewish people said, listen, it sounds pretty good, everybody, they said, listen, I am alive, and it's pretty amazing that I'm here. And, I have my opinions. My opinions are pretty amazing. Moses always telling me that I'm wrong, and I can't do what I want. And now I want to be right all the time. And Korach said that you are. Follow me, you're right all the time. You are God, you are the one. And the Torah and the commandments is, of course, good. It's good. You want to do the Torah and the commandments. I'm not telling you not to do Torah and commandments, but you should know that God, basically, that's what he's saying. Heshiv lo Moshe Rabbeinu, and Moshe Rabbeinu replied, and he said, just excuse me 1 second. Moses replied to him and said, Afilu talit shekula techelet, even a talit which is all blue. And remember, we said that blue represents also this level. Techelet means to destroy. It's a techelet, it destroys any bad things. Even you have a talit, the surrounding level of godliness, which is like, what's the word in English? Ubiquitous. It's everywhere, and everything is perfect, everything is wonderful. And it also has this level of blue, which destroys all the bad. Even if you have a talit that's all, and it's a talit, it's a surrounding level, and it's all blue, nevertheless, it is necessary and it is obligated to make strings. Yan, because ki ikar yesod Torah b'mitzvah, the whole essence of doing the Torah and the commandments is lahamshich giloi or ensof baruch hu, to do something. You're actually accomplishing something. You're revealing the light of the infinite God below in the world. We have to have Torah and the commandments. Like the saying, Imrotz libcha shuv le'echad. It says in Sefer Yetzirah, if your heart is running to God, come back to the oneness. What does it mean? You have to bring God down into the world. It's not enough just to say that God is everywhere and I'll get closer to him and move closer to him. But the world is already the way it's good the way it is. I can make it maybe better, but that depends on me. My heart. What's this? Good. Okay. You're admitted, everyone's admitted, yeah. See, maybe I can block out the sound. There's a school right next to me, and Baruch Hashem, they play very nice music, but they also play it very loud. 1 second. Will this help? We'll see. Maybe helped a little bit. Okay. So said Moses to Korach, I understand what you want to do. You want to say that everybody's already holy, that we don't really need the commandments. We should do them because that's what God wants, but it's not necessarily to reveal God in the world. If you want to, you can go up at higher levels of godliness. Says that no, you have, said Moses, no, you don't understand. The essence of Judaism is not feeling God. The essence of Judaism, that's what you say, right, Korach? You're feeling God, whatever you feel, that's godliness. You can feel more godliness if you want to. No, the main thing is the commandments. You have to bring God down into the world. Lo dai baratza lavad. It's not enough with just your feelings and your love of God and your appreciation of God. No. Shezeu bechinas levin. This is the level of the Levites. The Levites are good. The Levites raise up their voices to the Creator. But it's not enough. In order that there should be revelation of God in this world, really, or panini, in an inner way, from above, from above the whole entire creation. It's only by means of these strands, the strands of the tzitzis. There has to be individual, limited commandments. Shehem amshachas oros elalev, to draw down the lights of God into the heart in an inner way. It's not enough to have this general feeling of godliness. It has to be in an individual, even though these strings are contracted aspects of God. Harikach or mira, this is the way things have to be done. If you want to draw down real godliness from above the creation, in an inner way that it affects your day-to-day life and it affects the physical world, it's impossible unless you have the sarot, these hairs, and the chutim, or the strings. In other words, the commandments. The imlav, and if not, lo yumshach klal, nothing will be drawn down at all in a way of hamshacha v'gilu lamata, below, to be below. So that's like all these, you have these religions, especially the Eastern religions, where people go and they're going, the whole thing is to have a feeling. Have a feeling. You leave yourself and you have a feeling of freedom and ecstasy and being reborn and all these things. And that's religion. That's religion. And people get, almost all the religions have the same thing, right? Oh, I've been awakened. I now see the light. I'm so grateful. Eternal. I was wandering in the darkness. Now I have seen, Mr. X. You just fill it in. All the different religions that there are in the world, each one thinks that they have the way, and that none of them are like, but they're missing the whole point. You have to have commandments. And the only ones that are really commanded are the Jewish people. The ones that have the commandments are the Jewish people. So really all of the world should be trying to help and encourage the Jewish people to do the commandments. That's what it should be. How do they do that? By doing the 7 Noahide commandments. 7 Noahide commandments are not a religion. It's just basically following your conscience. Basically following your conscience, but it's telling you what your conscience, when you're connected to your conscience and when you're not connected to your conscience, right? If your conscience tells you, I should turn in my mother and father to Stalin because they have a couple dollars hidden under my bed and hidden under their pillow. So true, your conscience is telling you that. But it's wrong. Your conscience has been misled. The 7 Noahide commandments are trying to tell the non-Jews how to make the world an orderly place, a meaningful place. And part of making this world an orderly place, a meaningful place, is helping the Jews to make this world a holy place. And that's what Moses was against Korach. Korach said the world is already okay. It's already holy the way it is. If you feel a need that you want to get closer to God, so get closer to God. That's a wonderful thing. But don't think that you have to draw godliness into the world. Right? The world is the world. The world is okay the way it is. You have desires. You want to improve yourself. You want to, okay. And Moses said, no, you must. The world is not okay the way it is. The world must be improved by the Torah and the commandments to bring blessing, to bring godliness into the world. Who would ever think of such a thing like that? Right? Communism makes much more sense. You change the economic system of the world, and then everybody has what they need, and everybody works according to their ability. Wonderful ideas, right? Wonderful. The problem is they just don't work because it doesn't take God into account. And even though the God is concealed, but that's why God gave the Torah. That's why He put the Jewish people in the world. If you don't have the Torah, if you don't have the commandments to draw godliness down in the world, you don't have these strings or like the beard of Aaron to draw godliness into the world, then godliness remains concealed in a makif, in a surrounding way. The main thing is it has to be drawn into the world in a revealed way. Godliness has to be revealed in the world in a revealed way. That's the whole idea also of the Holy Temple. What's the Holy Temple? It's a building that looks like every other building, and it's got a little different architecture or something like that. And it's true that if you go inside, it's a little bit not practical. And there's certain places where you can't even go. It's not that user-friendly. But on the other hand, that's the way that godliness is brought into the world. This is by means of this. The world is a calmer place, a more positive place. People can bring out their potential. They can reveal the godliness inside of them. If there is no tzitzis, no strings, then the world begin. The godliness is concealed alone. The main thing is it has to be drawn down in a revealed way. Therefore, in batalis shum kedusha. Therefore, the talit alone, the garment. You've all seen a talit, right? The talit is this. It's just a white cloth. Ideally, it should be. It doesn't even have to be white. It's just a cloth that a person wraps himself in. According to the Torah, a Jew that takes a cloth that's square, has four corners on it, and he wraps himself in it, he has to put tzitzis on that garment. And it's even more, it's a very, very good thing to do this commandment, to go out and buy a garment that has four corners, and so that there'll be these tzitzis on it. There'll be these, and therefore, the talit, the garment itself has no holiness. If you have a talit that becomes whatever it is, wrecked or something like that, you can take off the tzitzis and use the talit to wash your car with if you want. Moshiach, which is not the case. The tzitzis, the strings, even though the talit, it hints at this high level of godliness, which is called the makif. So that's much, much higher. This is the surrounding aspect of God, which is much, much holier. More than any sort of holiness that you can draw into the world by means of the commandments. Shem nimim, which theirs is just strings of godliness, or panimian, an inner vessel of godliness. That's you put on a pair of tefillin, you do a commandment, right, to put a mezuzah on your door. You don't feel any godliness. Maybe you feel a little something, could be, if you're really, looking for something. But nevertheless, this is what draws down godliness in the world. Where does it draw godliness from? From this surrounding aspect of godliness that's too high to be revealed. So if it's too high, it means it must be super, super holy, right? It says no, it's not super holy, right? It's not practical for this world. This aspect of godliness. What's practical for this world is the commandments. The commandments bring the essence of God into this world in a way that it can be usable. Nevertheless, tenet. So therefore, the garment in the commandment of tzitzit, the garment is not holy. Oh, I skipped the line there. Yeah, Masha Enkin, which is not the case. The tzitzit. It says that the tzitzit, even though when they're removed from the garment, they're not holy. They're not holy anymore. It's like a Hanukkah menorah, or a knife that was used for killing chickens or something like that. It was used to do a mitzvah with the tzitzit, but it says the tzitzit aren't, because you did a mitzvah with it, you're not supposed to use it for a mundane purpose. The tzitzit are not supposed to be used for a mundane purpose. But the talit, yes, the talit you can be used. Even though the talit is really a higher level, it's very, very high, much more than the tzitzit. The tzitzit are just individual strings, or panimi that's drawn down. Nevertheless, it's self-understood that because, and the talit, because it is so high, that it's such a great light, and it's infinite, therefore, it can't be revealed below. To be in the talit. So the talit itself has no holiness in it whatsoever. But the tzitzit, the strings that come from it, because they are from this level of what's it called, the strands and an inner light of godliness that's drawn down in it by means of this contractions, etc., and the hairs. Therefore, therefore, there is an aspect of godliness in these strings themselves. Therefore, they're holy. So therefore, what is the Rebbe trying to say? The talit itself is a higher level, if you want to call it, of holiness, but it's impractical. Therefore, the physical garment cannot contain this godliness, which it is a metaphor for, which it hints at. But the tzitzit can contain this godliness, which it hints at, because that aspect of godliness is a lower aspect of godliness that can be how do you say, the articulated, it can be worked with and brought into the world. Therefore, therefore, even a talit that's all techelet, doma liyam, and the techelet that says this blue color is similar to the sea, and the sea is similar to the heavens. And the heavens, that's this aspect of the maki, the surrounding level. And it says that in the future, the world will be filled with the knowledge of God like the sea. But that's good, but that's all in the future. That's the level of the talit, of the garment. Super, super holy. But nevertheless, chayev b'chutei tzitzit. Nowadays, you have to have tzitzit on it. Why? The techelet, you have to have the tzitzis, and especially the blue of the tzitzis. She'em nimim, that they are strings, and an or panimi, and an inner light. Hanimshach misham, which is drawn from there, she'yir lalev, that it can shine into your heart in an inside way. So that's the argument between Moshe and Korach. Are the mitzvahs really the essence of Judaism or not? That's the argument. And we see that, unfortunately, through the generations, the most popular opinion is that of Korach. It was very popular then. Right? You have today the reform and conservative, and the commandments are optional, or they're unnecessary. They're obsolete. God forbid. And that was called, we're holy the way we are. We're okay, right? We're alive. We exist. That's God, right? We're Jews. That's even better. Said Moses, no. You have to have the commandments. The commandments, that's the essence of Judaism. That's the essence of life. It's the essence of the world. It's the essence of all mankind, of all truth and all being, are these commandments, because it brings godliness into the day-to-day life of a person. But it makes you change. And Korach said, I don't want to change. Who says that you have to change? Kia Omer, a person that says, Ein li elo Torah, a person that says that all I have is the Torah, afilu Torah ein lo. If he admits that all he has is the Torah, in other words, he just wants godliness, then he's admitting that he doesn't even have that. Tzarech lahamshich, because you have to draw down fear and love of God from above by means of the commandments, the tzitzit. Namely, that's just an example of the commandment, that these are the hairs, etc., of drawing godliness into the world. Let's see where this parenthesis stops. Oh, no? Or maybe we'll do the parentheses. Let's see. Okay, V'zeu, that's what it means. V'yikach Korach, that Korach took Ben Yitzhar, and his name was Yitzhar. We said Yitzhar means oil. Shalakach lo, that he took Lataina, for his claim, for his argument. What was his argument? He took the Vayikach Korach Ben Yitzhar. He took for an argument the fact that he is the son of oil. What's oil? Oil, this is the oil we talked about before. If you remember, we talked about this thing about the oil that runs down the beard of Aaron. Remember in a previous moment when we talked on Parshas Baalotcha, we talked about it. Shemen Atov. The Inyan is Kina is explained before that we talked the Shemen Atov, this good oil which is on the head of Aaron, it goes down to his beard. This is what's called Mochin Da'aba. Now we're going to have a little bit of Kabbalah here. Okay, so hold on. The source of this level of this oil, what's called oil, this is way before the world was created. The source comes from this level of Yesod of Atika Kadisha. This is the crown of God, which is above the skull of God. The skull of God of Erech Anpin. So it says like this, the God creates the world. It said he created the world with 10 utterances, right? 10 utterances. Bereshis Bor Elokim, that's one of them. And let there be light, that there be a firmament, etc. All these 10 utterances, this corresponds to the 10 sphirot, the 10 spheres, the 10 aspects of God's personality. 10. But there's above that. There's above the 10 aspects. There's God himself, above any aspects of his personality. Those are the 10 sphirot, that's God's personality. That's his. But what about God himself? So it says that's represented, there's different levels which are in that also. And that is hinted at by what's, let's take an example. God's personality, a person's personality is his brains, right? His brains, his heart, his emotions. What's above the brain? The skull. Your skull is above. So it says that God also, as man is created in God's image. So there's an aspect of God which is above, so to speak, his personality. That's called not his brains, that's his skull. That's what's represented. This is Kabbalistic stuff. This is called Erech Anpin, the outer level of God's crown. And the inner level of God's crown, this is what's called Atik, Atika Kadisha, Atik Yomin. So it says this oil of Aaron, its source comes from this level of Atik, which is above the skull. And there's one part of the crown which is close to on the king's skull, and there's the other part which is on the top. This is represented by this, okay. And there's super godliness that we have absolutely, we don't know what happens in the world of Yetzirah. A person dies and he leaves this physical world, goes to the lowest spiritual worlds. Everybody freaks out. Where is Uncle Sam, right? A fellow of infinite jest, he's gone and he's nowhere. Where he just went up to the lowest spiritual level, and that freaks everybody out. Here is talking about levels of spirituality that are higher and higher and higher than this. Now we're not just talking about spirituality. We're talking about where the spirituality comes from. And these are aspects of godliness. Right? And now we're talking about what's above these aspects of godliness. That's Atika Kadisha. And then there's levels above that. That's what the Arizal revealed, these levels of God. What did he reveal them for? First of all, he revealed it because he's showing us a roadmap, so to speak, an anatomy book of of godliness. That God is just not this big blob or something. It's very intricate and not only that, to let you know that all these things are just aspects of God. What God is itself, we have absolutely, I mean, even to say that we have no idea is a ridiculous thing, as though you could have an idea. It's like saying you can't smell the mathematics. Your power of smell is not the proper sense to use to mathematics. Same thing, your mind is not the proper vessel to grasp. Okay. So, but nevertheless, that's where Korach came from. He came from this tremendously high level, Yitzhar. Look in the book, in the Ramaz, Moshe Zechut. This is a commentary on the Zohar. Therefore, it was very high on all other liquids. Wine, it says that comes from the aspect of Bina, understanding. This is also concealed, but it's a concealment which is, wine can be revealed. But Mochin Da'aba, this level of oil, which that's called from Chachma, this is even above the whole entire order of creation. So he thought that was good enough. This is the level of Soviv Kalmin that surrounds all the worlds. That's where Korach came from. And therefore Korach said, listen, I come from the source. Believe me, you have it from me. I'm telling you, from me to you, you don't need the commandments. You should do the commandments. You definitely should do them, but you don't need them. Godliness is everywhere. The fact of the matter is, he's wrong. This level of this oil that he had, this can only be drawn down by the commandments. Like it says, that the commandments are a lamp. Like it explains in Torah or Parshas Miketz, Divra Maskal Chanukah. I think we learned that. I don't remember if we learned it. When we talked about the menorah of was it Zechariah? We just learned, we had the Haftorah a couple weeks ago. But Ali the mitzvahs, by means of the commandments, the commandments, it's still in a way of surrounding the Shiavoli de Giloi. This is by means of a Chachma Bechinas Torah or Shehu Giloi Tamya mitzvahs. This is the revelation of the reasons for the commandments. Now, a person does a commandment cold, right? Some Chabadnik stops him in the middle of the street He says put on tefillin. He puts on tefillin because it's godliness. So this definitely does do something. Definitely, it makes godliness in the world. But for it to really be revealed, it has to be by means of the Torah. The reasons, as much as possible, to understand the commandments. Or that the light of the Torah, it only shines by means of this oil of the light. So you have to combine them both. You have to combine the Torah with the commandments. So it says the Torah is the light, the commandments are the lamp. Hashem and the oil, Eino Meir, I can't oil alone, just take oil, right? Why doesn't it shine? Why doesn't it light? Because oil comes from this level of what's called Yoshet Choshech Sitro. Oil contains in it this level of the concealment of God, the darkness of God, levels that can't possibly be understood. Shubichin Keter, this is what we said before, the oil itself represents this level of God's crown or God's will, his upper will, which is above any possible coming into the world. But it can shine into the world by means of the actual commandments and the Torah. That's what God said, I will gather your wheat, your wine, and your oil. What does it say over there in the second paragraph of Shema? If you do my commandments, do what I say, then it says, then you will gather up your wheat, your wine, and your oil. This is the promises of the Torah, right? You do what it says in the Torah, what are you going to get? You're going to go to heaven. You're going to get these infinite revelations of godliness. Could be. But what does God promise us in the Torah? You're going to get wheat and wine and oil. That's what you're going to get for all of your Torah and your commandments. Work your whole life. You get wheat, wine, and oil. What's the benefit of that? The Gancha says this level of the wheat, that's the revealed Torah. The Torah is called Chita. Chita is the gematria also 22. It's 22 letters of the alphabet. Chita. Lochen, therefore, lachmo belachmi. Lachu, I'm sorry. Lachu, lachmo belachmi. Like it says, come and partake of my bread, says God. So you do the commandments, you do what God says, you're going to get bread. What's the bread? Torah. Understanding the Torah. Tiroshecha, what's the level of tirosh? You'll get wine. What's wine? Wine, it says, nichtas yain yotze sod. It says, when wine goes into a person, the inner secrets of the person come out. The true personality of a person comes out when he drinks wine. Shehu razin daraisa. These are the secrets of the Torah. Not just the revealed aspect of the Torah like the bread, but wine is the secrets of the Torah. Oh, that's pretty good. Huh? You learn, if you do all the commandments, do what you're supposed to, then you get an understanding of the outside of the Torah and even a little bit of glimpses, maybe even more than just a little bit, of the secrets of the Torah. This is like the body of the Torah, and this is like the body of the Torah. The bread is like the body, and nishmasa, and the soul of the Torah. That's mentioned in Parshas Balotcha. But then also, if you do my commandments, says God, I will give you the bread and the wine, the outer simple Torah and the secrets of the Torah. But you'll also get oil. What's oil? Oil is razin de razin, the secrets of the secrets. Bechinas nishmasa de nishmasa, the soul of the soul. Now you might think that a person gets these different levels that really makes them like totally spaced out. I mean, this person like floats down the street, right? You talk to him, he just doesn't, he's just in another world of truth and bliss all the time, right? No, wrong. No, these levels become incorporated in a person's soul. It just allows him to be who he really is, to be a normal, productive person in the world, and he's carrying God along with him. Something like the Holy Temple. The Holy Temple was a regular building, like every other building in the world, right? But inside, it was totally different. But from the outside, it didn't look any different. It had a little bit unusual architecture. But inside, it was different. That's what the Rebbe is saying. The soul of, I usually explain that the soul of the soul, the Torah is the regular Torah. The secrets of the Torah, that's Kabbalah. And the secrets of the secrets, that's Chassidut. Ke'inyan tamir, they're called tamir, and this is what's called the secret of the secrets. Shagam b'bechinas helem hu ne'elam, it is concealed. Ke'inyan ki ga'oi ga'oi, high, it's very, very high. And maybe we could take a little example of this. What does Chassidut do to a person, especially Chassidut Chabad? Number one is it brings you to value every Jew. Now you have to remember something. Even if a person learns Chassidut and he gets these secrets of the secrets, a person is still a person. A person still has free will and he still has his nature. And like we said before, as soon as a person learns the Torah, this is what my teachers told me. As soon as a person learns the Torah, it automatically fixes him up, automatically corrects him so he's perfect. 15%. 20%. You learn Chassidut, also 20%. But the other 80%, you have to do yourself. And that's the whole essence of the Torah. The Torah is what you do with this revelations and things that you got, and you don't even know you have it. It's something that becomes sort of a part of you, that you're thinking about God, and you're thinking about God in more normal, practical terms. But it doesn't make you into a religious fanatic and some sort of a whirling dervish or a monk or something like that. That you're separated from the world and you're out of contact and everybody's out of contact. No, you 80%, and there's the whole entire thing is you yourself. That's who you are. But what is inside of you, there is this new aspect that all of a sudden you realize that God is much, much, infinitely closer than you can possibly imagine. And at the same time, infinitely further than any possible conception. Just the simplicity that God creates all the heavens, he creates all the other religions, that all the other religions, people are freaking out, going over that, doing anything, for the go to heaven. Well, that's a question. And here God is creating the heaven. That's infinitely farther away than heaven. On the other hand, he's infinitely closer to us than we are to ourselves. He's creating us. We don't do that. So that's what Chassidut brings into a person. Like it says, like a balotcha, the Shem and Mishchat Kodesh. This is the level of Kodesh Elyon. That's where Korach came from. But he didn't want to draw it into the world, so he was lacking the truth of the aspect. Here's the example. Korach came from this level of Chachma. He had this level. And with this, what did he do? He made a big rebellion against Moses. Okay, let's see if I can get it. Okay, Korach, but Korach thought that his father, Shehu Shemen, which is oil, Ben Yitzhar, right? His father is oil. Therefore, it's this level of Mochin Stamoim, which is above the level of Aaron, which Aaron is just drawing down just a little ray of this level into the world. And even though it's true, it's from this level of Gevur, it's the almighty, with the infinite power of God. In Mochin Stamoim, like we said, in the hidden brain awareness of God, and it's in the Gevur of Atik. We said all these tremendous levels, etc. Even though it's very, very high, but nevertheless, Korach thought that's enough. Right? I come from this level. This is my level where I am, and he was a very impressive person, Korach. But on the other hand, interestingly enough, with all of his power and all of his ability, he never did anything for the Jewish people. Never did anything. Never brought it down into the world. The only time he brought it down was now into the world. Look in the Ramaz in Rabbi Moshe Zechuta, Parshas Emor, that he talks about this oil and etc. If so, it ends up that really Korach in his source is higher even than Moses and Aaron. And Moshe and Aaron, Moshe's Chachma and Aaron was Bina of Atzilut. And Korach had this tremendously high source from the secrets of the Torah. It says that Aaron and Moshe, they only receive from a lower level of godliness that could be brought into this world, like a hair. Just like it says that the hairs of the head and even of the beard, they come from the brain. That's what it says. It says in Raya Mehemna, etc. Parshas Kitisa. That's what Korach, the son of Yitzhar, took. Shalakach lo lataina, that he was ben Yitzhar. What does it mean? Sha'af lo yehei ba'atzilus hachasidim hagavoim, that he also should be able to emanate all of these, the highest levels of kindness and gevura and everything. He should be able to bring it down to the ground. Amnon bar Yota ben Yitzhar, because he was level of oil, therefore, Sham a gevuras gavoim yoter. Therefore, the gevuras are even higher, like it said about Yitzchak, Ata Avinu. We learned about this before. Penimius Abba, etc., etc., etc. Therefore, he thought, Korach thought, Shehu begavura shalo yagia lamayla mimoshav. Therefore, he thought that his level of gevura, of power, that oil floats above everything, that he came from gevura, and it says that Yitzchak, that's like the level of Yitzchak, that he changes everything, changes the whole world. Yitzchak's whole thing was true happiness and gevura, just like Korach was, the Levites. So Korach had it all figured out according to Kabbalah, according to Hasidus, according to that he was it. But he made a mistake, because you have to have Moses in order to bring all these tremendous levels into practical use. He made a big mistake. The Shemen Atzmo, that this oil itself, you cannot reach, you can't reach it all, because it's too high. You have to have Moses. Without a Moshe in every generation, you don't know how to use and to utilize and make practical all these tremendous powers and high revelations and secrets and etc. It has to be revealed. As we're going to, it has to be drawn down by means of these hairs, etc. That's the union of Aaron. And this is what we're going to learn, God willing, tomorrow. We'll finish this amazing mimer. But we have to understand that these, what's the Rebbe telling us about this? This is not a history, a Kabbalistic explanation of history. The Rebbe is trying to tell us what's going on inside of each and every one of us. What's going on inside of each and every one of us. The Rebbe is trying to tell us what's going on inside of each and every one of us. And what's going on inside of each and every one of us is that there is this battle is going on inside of us. On one hand, we're Jews. A Jew is tremendously high. And a Jew can say to himself, listen, I feel this level of truth. And what's the level of truth? It's me. And Moshe was trying to say, no, if you feel this level of truth, then you have to control it, sublimate it to Torah and the commandments, especially the way that Moshe says. And that's what we're going to talk about, God willing, tomorrow. But now we're going to learn the Sikha of the Rebbe on Gimel Tammuz. Let's tune this up.